everyone, welcome back to 996. Now, after a very surprising and shocking first day at the draft for the Coyotes, we go into day two where I didn't have many expectations. Maybe Cristal would have been nice at number 38. I was kind of the only familiar name I knew about. Cristal was pretty high in the early rankings, mid rankings as well, mid-season rankings. But near the end, he kind of, kept falling and falling. But the Coyotes, with their first pick of day number two at number 38, their only second rounder, if you can believe it or not. Next year and the year after, they got plenty more second rounders. This year, a little bit light. They draft a goalie, Michael Hirabal, another Czech goalie. We already have Vemelka, and maybe a fellow friend or a countryman in Hirabal, round two, number 38, 6'7", 216 pounds, 6'7". This guy's an absolute monster. Everyone here, no one at the draft this year the Coyotes took was under 6 feet tall. They just went for size. Even last year, the only player under 6 feet tall was Logan Cooley at 5'10". So, you got to believe it when Bill Armstrong says he wants big guys, he wants size, he wants to be intimidating, he wants to be really physical and go in the trenches. Players who want to go into the trenches for their team. So yeah, 9-13-4 record, a 286 goals against average, and a 908 save percentage. All these stats, pretty redundant. These players haven't even hit their official, junior league, whether it be the NCAA, WHL, there's a Finland player here, KHL, Sweden. So, these are kind of like really, really minor numbers. So don't take them, at face value and be like, these are terrible numbers. All these players have room to grow. You basically, right here, it's just a bunch of darts and you're hoping one lands on the bullseye. But, a huge goalie with a massive wingspan, towers over the opposition, rarely loses sight of pucks, and could really, what did I say here, seal the lower part of the net with his butterfly. He's committed to the NCAA next year, University of Massachusetts, probably mispronounced that terribly. And he was considered one of the top goalies in the draft, even though another goalie got picked right before him. So, not really the first goalie of the draft, or, if you go by who was picked first, not necessarily the best, but he was considered one of the top goalies in the draft. So I'm glad the Coyotes went for a goalie so early, and a very unique goalie in how tall he is. And, I love tall goalies, and hopefully he doesn't move around too much. People say he's really agile. He is one of 3 goalies that the Coyotes have drafted. Not sure if I want to read into that too much. I could go on a tangent and say, do the Coyotes not have trust in Prosvetov and Tendek, who are both restricted free agents as of Saturday? They also have Thornton and Korhonen in their respective junior leagues. So maybe they just want to deepen that goalie pipeline with 3 more goalies. Maybe they immediately after this, they move on from Prosvetov and Tendek and just refresh their goaltending pipeline. Or they keep Tendek and Prosvetov and you have all these goalies and one of them is going to hit and play really well for the team and bring them to the playoffs. Next, round 3 at number 70, Castagna, the only centerman taken in this draft. A lot of these forwards are listed as winger. To me, if Elite Prospects doesn't actually put the letter C in their position for centerman, they're just wingers. There's no confidence that they're going to be NHL centermen. So Castagna is the only centerman listed on Elite Prospects here. Surprising, I could go read into that as well. Are the Coyotes really happy with the development of Cooley and Geeky and the emergence of Hayden and McBain so that they really don't need to concentrate on centers anymore and concentrate on building around those centermen? That could be the way they're going, because if you're only drafting one centerman in supposedly a really good and deep draft in years, that tells me you really like your center depth as it is. Or maybe next year and the year after there's better centermen. We don't know, but the scouts do. 6'2", 194 pounds, 72 points in 50 games played in high school. So people are considering Castagna to be a bit of a reach because the consensus around him was to be picked in the hundreds and late hundreds. He was picked at 70. They picked him right out of high school, St. Andrews College in a small town in Ontario. He is committed to Cornell University in the NCAA next season. They got quite a few NCAA players from day 2 of the draft. So keep an eye, on Cornell University. Obviously, if he's from high school, like not a lot of teams are sending scouts to go scout high school in Ontario. So maybe that's why everyone's saying this was a reach. Maybe not too many scouts went out to go watch that high school team. But your second pick of the day is considered a reach. Thankfully, not a lot of other picks here were considered reaches. They were pretty much in their respective ranges. So that was about, I think, the reach of the day. He's a two-way centerman, very good in his defensive zone, and he's got an aggressive north-south game. So we'll keep an eye on him. He's going to be a really long time considering he just, finished high school, I guess. Then we go to Noel Nord. I should say Castagna's first name is Jonathan. Noel Nord, round 3, 72. So sort of a back-to-back here. He's from Sweden. He plays in Sweden. He's got a really good defensive game and competitiveness to his game. And a lot of scouting blurbs and draft blurbs said he's really smart. He's a really smart player. 13 goals, 14 assists, 27 points in 38 games played in Sweden. 6'2", 201 pounds. You gotta love those over 6 foot tall 200 pounders. Then we go to Lutka, a winger from the US of A. 6 feet, 185 pounds. Was supposed to be in the 65 to 90 range, so game at 81's pretty good. Even Nord, who's a winger, was supposed to be taken around 70 to 90, so he's in the appropriate place there. Lutka, 6 foot tall, 185 pounds, 66 points in 57 games played in the United States Hockey League for Lincoln. He is committed to the University of Nebraska in the NCAA next year. So if you're an NCAA fan, you got a lot of Coyotes prospects here to look forward to, along with Logan Cooley going back to college and Sam Lipkin as well. Then we go to Vadim Moroz, 3rd round, number 88, playing in Belarus. I thought it was another Russian, but he is from Belarus. He does play in the KHL, which is why I thought it was another Russian they picked. 6'2", 185 pounds, 14 points in 39 games played in the KHL. So the fact that he's playing already in the KHL and he was just drafted, he's getting more used to and accustomed playing a men's league. So that bodes well for me. This guy's already playing in the top league in Russia, and he's just going to continue playing there. And hopefully with the picks of Simashev and Boot and Duda from last year, he's excited to join the Coyotes. What I also learned is that Russian contracts don't expire. Their signing rights, the NHL signing rights. So it's not like other prospects where after 3 years, they become free agents. We saw that with Farinacci. That happens with college students in the United States, and I think Canadian hockey players as well. But Russians, KHL contracts, you have their signing rights forever. So that's pretty good. They don't expire. So if they want to take their time, you still have them. If they don't want to report to you, I guess you can trade them for value. So that was a little wrinkle that I just learned about last night. We'll go to round number 4. For our first defenseman of day number 2, Goldsmith. He's Canadian, plays for Prince Albert in the WHL. 6'4", 223 pounds. God damn, that's a big boy. 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points, 58 games played. He is not an offensive defenseman. He is literally a physical fighter, a bit of a goon, if you will. 102 penalty minutes in those 58 games played. You can watch some of his fights on YouTube, just pummeling guys. This guy's a bruiser, sort of maybe his ceiling's like Josh Brown. So pretty excited for that. I love defensemen I love Josh Brown. I didn't expect to love him so much. I loved him last year. Just a defenseman who's not afraid to fight, clears a crease. He's just a menace, down low behind the net, big body, intimidating. I love that, and he's 6'4". So you've got Goldsmith, Lamoureux, and Simashev, who are just towers out there. Maybe, I said Lamoureux and Simashev were the two towers. Here we go. We got a third tower here. Maybe we'll get a little bit more. Top four of towers. And then we got our next goalie, Melker Thielen. Yes, his name is Melker. We have the Melka, and now we have Melker. So maybe if he makes the Coyotes debut, the Milkman nickname will live on. Melker Thielen, round 5, 134th overall, plays in Sweden, 6'2", 170 pounds. 8 wins, 7 losses, 211 goals against average, and a 930 save percentage. He had an amazing playoffs for his team in Sweden, winning 12 games and losing 5, and his numbers were a 255 goals against average and a 916 save percentage. So those are pretty great numbers. You can take that for face value and say, wow, this goalie's putting up pretty good numbers at his age. Hopefully it continues in the higher divisions in Sweden, which I still need to be familiarized with. Sweden's pretty complicated. I thought, the USHL was complicated. I think Sweden is really hard to understand, but I'll get there. Next, we have Justin Kipke, a Canadian boy, round 5, number 160 overall, 6'4", another, wow, I didn't even know he was a 6'4" defenseman. Another tower. There we go. This is our top 4 of D-men right here. 6'4", 190 pounds, 33 points in 67 games played. So a bit more offense than Goldsmith, and he was touted as being a mobile puck mover. So more of an offensive defenseman than Goldsmith, who's just a bruiser on your back end. He is in the WHL for the Victoria Royals. Next, we have Bow. So we have Boot and Bow. Maybe the Coyotes are trying to save on lettering on their jerseys. He's a winger, round 6, number 162, plays in Finland, 6'5", 214 pounds, plays for Ilves, the team that Michelli played for, Välimäki played for, Hayden played for a little bit of a spell. So there's something about that team. I swear they have a scout who just loves that team and is just finding a lot of players through drafting with Michelli or pro scouting with targeting Välimäki and liking him in his days in Finland. And then, they have experience with sending Hayden there. So maybe the Coyotes have a good relationship with that team in Finland, hoping he has the same success as Michelli did with that team. And then lastly, our last pick of the day, another goalie, our last and third goalie, round 6, number 166, plays in the United States of America, and he's 6'4", 214 pounds. He won gold for the under-18 World Junior USA team. He didn't play a lot, 2 games played, he wasn't really the starter, and he's committed to Colorado College in the NCAA as well. So that's it. A very unexpected draft. They taunted us all week with expect the unexpected, and this was the unexpected. The only expectation we saw was everyone was over 6 foot tall. So I guess from here we gotta really hammer that home that Bill Armstrong and scouting staff only want big boys. Whether that's arrogance, hubris, a match for today's NHL. I understand a lot of skilled players are small, speedy playmakers. I don't hate those type of players. We have our own in Keller and Michelli, but the teams who win cups, they usually have some big bodies. The Avalanche are humongous. We saw that when we played them in the playoffs in the bubble. They just outmatched us with size and intensity. That's the sort of team we're looking at to be here. Maybe look at St. Louis, also a bunch of bruisers. Even Vegas, not a lot of. I know Marchessault won to Conn Smythe, who's a small playmaker, but they just surrounded him with monsters. Even guys like Stone and Eichel, they're big boys. They're not afraid to throw the body. Barbashev was on the team as well. Their defensemen are pretty sturdy defensemen as well. They don't have a smallish puck-moving guy like Makar. I know Theodore might be, but they got McNabb, Martinez, Petrangelo. So you got to surround your small players with a lot of big guys. And I think Bill Armstrong likes the small players he already has in Keller, Michelli, and Cooley. Maybe Geeky as well. He's teetering between like 5'11 and 6 foot tall. But we'll see. I'm liking that they drafted 3 goalies. The amount of goalies you have, the better, because you never know with goalies. They're pretty much voodoo. Again, just another case of it's about how many darts you have on the dartboard and not just relying on 1 or 2 goalies. We'll see what that means for Prosvetov and Tendek going into the weekend. If they get contracts and the weeks after that, maybe I would have liked 1 more center or a couple more centers as opposed to only 1. And we'll see from there. I'm liking their motivation to get really, really tall defensemen. I don't know if the development of Lamoureux has pushed the Coyotes into this direction. He was injured last year, so I really hope that they're not really thinking Lamoureux's not going to develop and we need to replace that type of tall, lanky defenseman who could move around with more prospects. I really hope they like Lamoureux and see a future with him on the Coyotes. I'm just, we've been burned so many times with picking defensemen in the first round, like Joseph and Soderstrom, and then, sort of Hayden as well. Not a defenseman, but a bit of a reach at number 5. He is still progressing and getting better every year, so maybe he even takes a step further this year. But yeah, it's just we've been burned so many times, and coming off 2 really good drafts with Gunther and Cooley and Geeky. Just this one caught us by surprise. Hopefully the scouts know what they're doing. Hopefully they're building a team and not really just relying on specific positions. Just they have a vision and they're just executing it, and that's what we're seeing now. And hopefully it all works out and comes to fruition. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.